The recent firing of Target's CEO raises some interesting questions about an aspect of crisis I haven't talked about before in my on-message sessions. And I want to talk about what happens when you're a leader. You can be a CEO or any kind of leader, and a crisis happens to your organization. The question is, what happens to you? And I think what we need to think about is, what is your role and what can you do to try to survive the crisis? The first thing that I advise anyone in a leadership position to do is to admit the mistake that you made. Even if you don't know what the mistake was, admit that you're trying to figure out what happened and that something did happen and that it was wrong. And say whatever kinds of apologies you can say without getting yourself deeper in trouble. The problem with this is that lawyers are often on the other end of the discussion advising you not to apologize for reasons of litigation. And I think that usually you win in the court of public opinion much bigger than you lose in the court because of the liability. The second thing that you need to do is to explain what happened. Why did this problem happen, whatever it is? And in the case of the Target CEO, why was there a data breach? What was the fault of the system? And how did that affect the company? Was it a management problem? Was it an operational problem? What was the logistical issue that put you in the position that you're in? But more important than anything else is to try to explain to people why it's never going to happen again. And if you think about some of the crises that are still looming and out there that are just not resolved, I think Toyota is a great example of a crisis. We still don't know what happened. No one is going to believe that these people were putting their foot on the gas pedal instead of the brake, or that a mat got in the way. The explanation has to make sense and pass the laugh test. If you can do that, chances are you'll be able to survive the crisis as a company. But what happens to you is not always as clear. And in the case of the CEO at Target, obviously he didn't make it. What will happen to Mary Barra at GM is a very good question, because despite her best efforts to try to see the company through the crisis, and I think she's doing a pretty good job of managing it, I'm not sure she's going to make it in the end either. So one thing to do, as far as I'm concerned, is try to avoid getting into trouble in the first place. And that means looking at what the risks are, both from an operational and financial perspective for sure, but adding that reputational risk to the mixture so that you can be sure that this never happens to you. If you want to keep your job, whether you're a CEO or a manager of a function, the best thing for you to do is make sure you don't get into trouble in the first place.